Our next guest has spent the morning helping our community commemorate one of our country's most defining moments, of course, the attacks of September 11th.
And now the son of President Gerald R. and First Lady Betty Ford, Steve, is joining us today.
Thank you so much for being here with us today. I know you spent a good deal of time here in West Michigan as the president of the foundation, and I want to say thank you so much for making 8 West a stop today, because I know you're very, very busy down at the museum. Tell us about what you're doing there.
Well, we were part of a ceremony that the Boy Scouts are doing for remembrance of 9/11, and they've been doing this for 11 years now. In fact, it's Dad's council, the Gerald R. Ford Council, is the only Boy Scout council that has done this every year for the last 11 years, and they stand there saluting the flag. I was there. They rang the bell for when the first plane hit the towers on the 11th, and then I spoke for just a little bit, and then they rang a bell for the second plane that hit the towers. And you know, for Dad would be he'd be thrilled to death, because the Boy Scouts meant so much to him, and he was the only president that was ever an Eagle Scout,
right.
And so he'd be smiling today to think the Boy Scouts are out there doing that.
And some of the young people, and you're watching video right now of that ceremony, but some of our young people today growing up a little bit differently than we did, having it been post the September 11th attacks. And it's so great that you've donated so much time and energy to help with that. The community is actually invited out to programs a little bit later on today as well. We've got one at noon and one at 7:45. Mayor's going to be speaking at noon, the Grand Rapids mayor. What does this mean to you? What's the personal significance?
Well, I remembered back last night when I was thinking about the program this morning where I was prior to 9/11, and about 2 months before 9/11, I work as an actor, a TV and film actor, and I was just coming back from finishing a film in Morocco, North Africa, a movie called Black Hawk Down, which was the tremendous true story about where we lost 18 brave American soldiers in Somalia in the early 1990s. And that story was about, bin Laden had gone to Somalia in the early 1990s to train the warlords how to shoot down U.S. helicopters, and they'd learned how to do it against the Russians in Afghanistan in the late 80s, and we didn't even know who bin Laden was in the early 1990s. Here he was, training Somali warlords how to shoot down U.S. helicopters. So I was coming back from shooting this movie, Ridley Scott directed it, Black Hawk Down, and 2 months later, September 11th happens, and bin Laden is involved again 10 years later. With the Twin Towers and the Pentagon. So it really brought it home to me. And I said this morning, listen, I was doing a movie where we had fake bombs and fake bullets and we're actors. I came home to America where terrorists use real bombs, airplanes, to kill thousands of Americans. And that's the reality of it. So war is very, when Dad was president, he worried about the Russians and the Cold War and nuclear arms and the Vietnam War, and today war is so different. And young people in this country today, war is a very different thing than it was 20, 30 years ago.
I remember I was actually working here on that day, and I remember after that second plane went in, we were off the air. We had continual network coverage for I think it was almost 48 hours. And you think back, and I remember it crystally clear, like it was just yesterday. But how incredible it is that in this meaningful way, these scouts are every year helping us all remember.
I think they teach us more than we know about honoring and the remembrance of the loss of life. And Dad gave a great speech back during the bicentennial in 1976 when we celebrated 200 years of freedom. And he talked about that sacrifice for freedom, and that's what 9/11 was about, is sacrifice. And we have to honor those people that sacrifice their lives.
And continuing every day of the year. Well, thank you so much. Thanks for spending time with us. And remember, the events go on all day today, and you're definitely invited to take your children and head down to participate. Thank you.
Thanks.
We'll be right back.
This is 8 West.